This Kirblog topic was suggested by Iris Blue Moon. If you'd like to suggest topics for videos like these, and if you want to hear me record them in my community Discord server before they release, consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/Kirbifer. On this Kirblog, I was asked to review the Mega Man animated series. And how relevant, because this is, as I stopped and thought about, what am I going to be talking about specifically? And it's like quite a bit, because I look back and realize that the several different Mega Man animated series are perhaps more part of my lifeblood than I thought. And certainly over a very, very long course of time for me. So just first things first, actually, if you guys might have noticed listening, hearing this on YouTube, based on the slightly changed intro. Yes, I am in fact recording this as we speak. It is Saturday afternoon, October 21st at the time I'm recording this. And I'm recording the monthly Kirblog topic in my newly launched Patreon Discord server, which is specifically for $10 patrons and up. So if you'd like to join in on that to hear these ahead of time, and also I'm going to be doing monthly private Q&As with $10 patrons. Wanted to plug that first and foremost. I thought that this would be a nice little thing. This is, of course, once again, because while my arm is injured, my hand's got the bad case of tendonitis and everything. This is something that I'm doing in place of the drawing raffle ticket things and all that stuff. So, but nonetheless, and I think that the person who suggested this topic was even a new, relatively new patron after I put the kind of word out of how I was going to be handling this with my arms and everything. So yeah, it's quite fitting, because as you all know, I'm sure, you know that I love me some Mega Man, and I have been following basically all of the animated shows from the very beginning, as far back as I can remember, when I was just a good feather. When I was still in my single digits, and you know, the NES series was happening, the X series was new at the time. I don't remember exactly how I first learned about Mega Man, but I know that kind of around the same time, there was this combination of was the cartoon, the Ruby Spears American Mega Man animated series was airing on TV wherever I happened to see it. And my babysitter at the time, whose name was Kimberly, and I've talked about her, I'm sure, at some point before, because it was her house where I came up with the name Kirbifer when I was 12 years old. So I knew her for a long time, but when I was still younger than 12, and I made Kirbifer 12 on my, you know, AOL Instant Messenger screen name and everything. When I was younger than that, we would play a lot of NES games together. And actually, I traded my copy. This is blasphemous. I know people would kill me for this, but I traded my copy of the Legend of Zelda NES, my card of that, to Kimberly for her copy of Mega Man 2 for the NES, because I wasn't big on Zelda. I was terrible at it and didn't like it that much, but I was obsessed with Mega Man. And I don't know quite what it was. Maybe it was the bright colors and the blue, because he was a blue guy. I love blue characters, and maybe because, I don't know, he was you could change colors with each power that he got. I like the Robot Masters. I don't know. But then I remember just one day just catching the cartoon on TV. And I believe the very first episode that I ever saw of the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon was the episode where Mega Man and Snake Man have their bodies switched. I would just catch random episodes of this just kind of scattered around. Other ones that I recall at the time were the one where they fight like the band, and then they turn out that they're actually like Spark Man and Gemini Man and somebody else like in disguise. You know, as it was, you know, produced, it was just sort of like, yeah, it's just a Saturday morning, or you know, not serialized, you know, just like a weekday afternoon, whatever. I don't know what it was on necessarily, but it was just like a standard American cartoon type show where like there wasn't necessarily any continuity, you know, between episodes. It was just very basic. I remember being pretty blown away by that intro, which still holds up, even though it's not the greatest in terms of lyrics, super fighting robot, do Mega Man. But the intro itself was so cool, like beautifully animated. I thought it was fantastic. And the show itself, I can't say that it's the type of thing that I like to go back to that much, because it's not great, but it's certainly worth a laugh or two. And I think I sort of rediscovered my love for it. Funnily enough, years later when Wes did his, Kadget did his meme videos, Hope My Body Can Take It, is, real brother relationship and Guts Man's ass, da-da, and all that stuff. That kind of reminded me of those cartoons again. And I think that maybe around that time, which would have been in like college or so, I think that I did go back and rewatch the whole show. I definitely looked up the kind of infamous Mega Man X episode, which I had never seen that before. That was one that I just kind of missed when that aired back in the day. I think it was one of the last episodes of the second season, because I think they did 26 or 52 episodes or something of that show. And at the same time, it was funny because there were so many Robot Masters from some of the later games that they never did. I don't think they went past like 5, maybe. I think that Mega Man 5 for the NES was the farthest they went in terms of the Robot Masters that would be in that show. But I was always curious to see, like, how is this one's personality going to be, and et cetera. And I realized that they were all pretty, one-dimensional, with the exception of the mainstays, of course, because, Cutman and Gutsman, which were hilarious. Cutman, I remember particularly being one for a while that a lot of my friends at the time and I, we all used to do the sort of Peter Lorre, like, hey, Mega Man, you're a little low on air and you're full of sorry. A lot of that. And I grew to appreciate, I have a clip somewhere, on like an old hard drive of somebody going up to Scott McNeil, who played Proto Man and Dr. Wily and a couple other characters in that show. And he was at some convention. Oh, it was on some Mega Man site that I went to. I wonder, it might have been like Mega Man Network or something. I can't recall, but there was a clip somebody just filmed on their little, like, like flip phone at the time. It was like early 2000s, and they asked him to do, his voices. And apparently at cons in general, he'll just throw that out there like, all part of our plan to take over the world. Back when all mad scientists were fully German, actualized as Germans. And also, Proto Man, like, yeah, nice one, Doc. Maybe you could get yourself together and we could go find my bro. Which is just Scott. I thought for a long time it was just Scott being himself, just like hyper exaggerated. Turned out apparently, Ian Corlett, who was Mega Man in that show, he was supposed to play Proto Man as well, and then they realized in the first episode of recording, sounds a little too much like it's the same guy, and then they had Scott do it, and Scott's like, it's my impression of Ian as Mega Man, more or less. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, some fond memories, but it's not one of those types of things where I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to go back and rewatch the Ruby Spears Mega Man cartoon, and even showing other people, it's not that kind of show. And I'm like, oh yeah, we should totally watch this together. We should binge the Mega Man show. It's like, it's one of those ones that ends up as like, here, it's a free cartoon. I think you could just watch the show for free on YouTube. I think it's one of those kind of cartoons where it's just like, here they are. It's just practically public domain at this point. So, funnily enough, and this technically jumps ahead of, Mega Man NT Warrior, I believe, but this was done before that. So there was an anime OVA, a classic Mega Man OVA little 3-episode thing called Mega Man Wish Upon a Star. What I'd found out, apparently, was the first of these 3 episodes. It's basically, for those of you who don't know what the hell it is, it's basically a story about, it's one of those things, I didn't love that video game anime shows did this, because the Mario anime movie did this and the Goemon Mystical Ninja anime did this, where the whole plot is like, oh, they're like, the video game characters are from the video game world and they come out of the TV and they just do stuff in Tokyo with human kids that are from our world. And I'm just like, oh, great. Not a fan of that plot, but okay. Like all those ones I listed did that. So this was that. It was these two kids that lived in Japan that played Mega Man, and then Mega Man Roll and Proto Man and Dr. Wily and Dr. Light. And I think the Mega Man 5 Robot Masters at the time, I think, they all popped out of the TV, and they were all, wreaking havoc and doing stuff. But what I didn't realize, so I bought this thinking, ooh, cool, a classic Mega Man anime. Sure, that could be fun. So I just bought it from Best Buy, like on a whim. I just like came across it, didn't even know it existed. And apparently they recorded the first episode of these three things before they worked on the Ruby Spears cartoon. They did this at Ocean Studios in Vancouver. And some of the actors, like Scott McNeil did Wily in that with a British accent. And they had Dr. Light's actor, Jim Burns, do him in the later episodes. So I guess at some point after that, they went back and they redid those other two episodes for the OVA thing. So there's that. But I threw this in and was like, oh man, I'm so excited. And then I very quickly learned from that first episode of it that it was actually like a travelogue. It was like sort of like an edutainment type of thing where it was about, like, there was a story, but like Mega Man flew around like the sites in Japan and like, he would fight the Robot Masters and stuff, but it was mostly like learning about Japanese culture and like, seeing, like, oh, like, I gotta go. No, sorry, Mega Man. I can't, from the human kid whose name I forget. I can't hang out this weekend. I've got to go to cram school. It's Saturday, stuff like that. And I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, I was like, this is not at all what I was expecting this to be. Like, it was so strange. And I mean, I watched, I think I might have watched it with a friend at the time. I don't remember, but yeah, it was really strange. And I've never gone back and rewatched it now. I think the one time I went back and like perused over it was when I was doing, one of the Did You Know voice acting videos that I made. And there was a trivia thing I wanted to show about some of the shared cast between those. And, I went back to just get a couple clips of Dr. Wily or Dr. Light or something. I think that was about it. It was very weird, very, very strange, scenario. And I remember like Dr. Wily had like a giant like boss mech that was like Samurai Man or something like that. Vaguely remember it. Wasn't great. Was not all that entertaining to me personally. But I had it. I bought it because I wanted it at the time. Kind of related to, I've never seen these. I've never like thought to just go watch them on, like YouTube or something, but there was a game called, Super Adventure Rockman. I don't remember what system it was for, but it was some kind of like choose your own adventure kind of game that like had like a first person kind of like blaster mode where you'd fight Robot Masters. I'm not entirely sure how it worked, but the Archie comic series did an adaptation of it. And that's kind of my only real knowledge of it. But apparently it has all these like different cutscenes, like fully animated cutscenes in it. And it seemed to be in the same kind of animation style as that OVA that I mentioned. But I've never watched it before. I don't know. I'm not super knowledgeable of that. But of course, the major one, and I know I've talked so much about this series, already, but, the big influence was, of course, Mega Man NT Warrior. So I'll recount the story for those of you who don't already know. NT Warrior was, the anime was coming out on Kids WB, in the early 2000s for me. And I had been aware of the Battle Network games. I had seen a promotional thing in an issue of Nintendo Power about the first one. So I picked up very quickly that like, oh, it's like Cyber World, like internet versions of the Mega Man Classic characters, which I thought was really cool. And so there was a level of interest there. I think I had fallen out of Mega Man a little bit. I just, there wasn't much happening in the Classic series at that time. And, I wasn't big into X, so I didn't really like, get much into it beyond that. But I recall really like decisively wanting to like, you know what, I'm going to get into Battle Network. I'm going to like really become a big fan of this. And I think around that same time too, I always forget which came first, but Dot Hack Sign was shortly after, and I wanted to watch that show as well. So there was a little bit of both. But, it was that general interest that Reboot had opened up in my mind to like cyberpunk, internet, cyber world type thing. And Battle Network, I was just all in at that point. So I remember the Saturday morning, and I know I've told this story many times, but I believe it was a Saturday morning. I was at a beach house on a little mini vacation over the summer. And I believe that NT Warrior was premiering on Kids WB. And at the same time, over on the Fox box, Sonic X was premiering. And I was flipping the channels back and forth to watch both, not really realizing that I really should have just skipped out on Sonic X and just watched NT Warrior. Yeah, I said what I said. Yeah, come at me. It was, I fell in love with it right away. I really, really enjoyed it, and it already felt like such a tremendous inspiration. And I got so hardcore into it that by the time that right before the second season of the first, because I should specify, the second half of the first series, which was just regular NT Warrior, Rockman EXE. So before Access, it was around when Bass was introduced into the show after the defeat of Pharaoh Man. I was so into it. And again, that was also around that time that I was realizing, the shows that I'm watching on Saturday morning, and even some of the ones on weekday afternoons, these anime shows, they're being censored. And so my dad and I, when we bought a bootleg box set on eBay of fan-subbed episodes, and that was my first time realizing, that was my first time seeing like unofficial fan subs where they would put during the commercial breaks, like, this is not for, reprint. This is a free fan sub. If you bought this on eBay, you got ripped off or whatever. And, learning that lesson the hard way. And then eventually I looked into, torrenting stuff, which I am vehemently against now because there's no reason to do that anymore. But, so I had the entire, first series on DVD, in Japanese with subs. And, I remember I was even I watched all the Japanese episodes of that rest of that first series before they were airing in the dub. And then, as they were airing in English, I would watch the Japanese version first and then watch the English one after to see like, what did they do? What did they cut? What did they make this character sound like? How do they interpret this person or, whatever. And then just, being angry at all the changes that they were, making for no reason at the time. So that was kind of my early experience. And then, when Access was coming out, that I was following the fan subs of as it was being, subbed like, from week to week and month to month by, I forget what the name of the group was that was doing it back then, but, I watched most of that show subbed. Actually, no, I think all of it. Yeah, because there were some episodes of Access, the second series of NT Warrior, that they didn't dub. So I'd seen it all. And then much later, they ended up dubbing all the, or at least the majority of the Access episodes. And then, when Stream and Beast Plus, the later seasons came around, those, I was following. That's one of the only, if not maybe the only anime that I've ever followed week to week. Raw Japanese, and just kind of tried to discern whatever the hell was going on, from the, like just listening to the Japanese, looking at the visuals and reading, summaries on, there was a site, it's not as active anymore, but there was a site called, Rockman-EXE. And by that, I mean dash like the actual symbol for dash, not dash like Rockman dash Mega Man Legends. Have to specify that. Rockman-exe.com, which was this website that was specifically about the Japanese version of NT Warrior, of Rockman EXE, following that. And there were people on the message board that would summarize what was going on in each episode. So we were following them. Someone would record them off Japanese TV, somehow, and upload them as like low quality, video files at the time. And, they would put that up there. And I'd kind of be following the show just kind of through that community, which was kind of interesting. And seeing like the different, because I was very hardcore into following the games at that time as well. So seeing like the differences sort of unfolding between how the game's plot would go and then how the anime would go, and watching the NT Warrior anime slowly but surely turn into almost like an animated tokusatsu, because of course they had the cross fusion stuff where it's like, I turn into like my, Power Ranger form. And then by the end of stream, we have like a team of like 12 different characters that are all cross fusion, half human, half Navi people and stuff. So a lot of that. And I recall like following that for a long time, all the way up until the end of Beast Plus. And then shortly after, or sometime after it was over, like for good, I did also follow a bit of the Star Force anime. I did watch that subbed. That was being subbed, I think, as it came out. I think there were a lot more prominent fan subbers, like kind of in the community by that time. So it was being subbed, and it took a long time for Stream and Beast Plus to be fan subbed by people, which, sad to say, that's the only way legally to be able to watch those episodes in Japan, or not even legally, but just to watch them in Japanese at all, unless you reverse import the episodes or whatever. But yeah, so unfortunately, because there's no legal way to watch those shows otherwise, and to obtain them and everything, sad to say, unfortunately. But I did follow Star Force, or Ryusei no Rockman, for a little while. I did not watch the second season of the show. I did watch in Japanese up to the end of the first season when they fight King Cepheus, I think his name is. The dub did not get that far. I think the dub only did like 13 episodes. And that was also back by the time they split it into doing like half an hour. They were like 11-minute or 12-minute episodes, which was very strange to me. I was not a huge fan of that kind of format. And then I kind of fell out of love with Star Force, which is sad because I know that the games are great. So whenever they do a Star Force collection, I'm sure that I will play those, and at some point, hopefully, if my arms will allow me to. And so I'll have that. But yeah, I never finished the Star Force anime. I never watched what was the second season? It was like Tribe. It was Ryusei no Rockman Tribe. I've never seen those episodes of the Star Force anime in Japanese. So there's a little tiny pocket of Mega Man animated series stuff that I've not explored before. I know basic things about it. I know that obviously it has characters from Star Force 2 in it specifically, and then the show got canceled. I love the opening, and it's weird because I liked the opening, but I just ended up not watching the show. I don't know what was happening in my life at that time to make me kind of fall off of it, but yeah, it just fell out of interest. And then that was, but I did go back. I think that since NT Warrior / Rockman EXE finished, I think I have gone back and rewatched all of Original and Access at least twice. Once a number of years ago, and then just recently when they had them all up on the Capcom official YouTube channel, which people know when I was watching, when I was playing through the Battle Network video games. Y'all know that, of course, that was, I was watching those during little break times, between playing the games and stuff like that. So yeah, NT Warrior for me stands the test of time. There's episodes of it that I think are kind of lame, and the dub is, a little middling. I love the performances in the dub, and some of the writing is funny, but the censorship and the changing of stuff I didn't love, and even some of just the original Japanese like plots in general are just not that interesting. But when it gets good, for a very long time, up until when Pokemon X and Y happened, I considered NT Warrior the best of the Saturday morning, like toy driven type of anime shows, in terms of story. I felt that NT Warrior had the best story. And then Pokemon X and Y, for me personally, kind of took that crown. Yeah, even going back and rewatching it, earlier this year when the episodes came out, I really enjoyed myself, seeing all those again. And I hope, any of you guys who tuned in to the, Battle Network game streams that I did, a few months back and watched the episodes with me. I hope that you guys, enjoyed watching the episodes in between everything. That was cool. So last but not least, that just leaves the, most recent Mega Man animated series, which of course is, Mega Man Fully Charged, which I've accidentally called Mega Man Powered Up like 700 times, which is not the same thing. Although they are both classic Mega Man based things, but nonetheless, Fully Charged was interesting. I remember hearing about when they were first developing that show, and I was interested. I was a little hesitant because I didn't know exactly how it was going to turn out, but I definitely wanted to see how a new sort of interpretation of classic would be done, because we've never had anything quite like that other than the Ruby Spears cartoon, where instead of doing like a straight adaptation of, or like just something very much in the vein of the particular games, like in the case of, I guess I didn't mention real quick, but there's not much to say about it because it's just perfect, is the Mega Man X OVA, the Day of Sigma, which I really, really enjoyed. And I think part of why I enjoyed that so much, just to talk about that for a second, is because it was treated like it was something really, really in universe with everything. So it felt authentic. It didn't feel like it was, somebody trying to like do an interpretation. It just felt like it was the real thing. And even NT Warrior, despite it not being the same universe as the video games, because the stories and characters were different, it still felt like it was on brand for Battle Network. The American Mega Man cartoons were taking classic Mega Man and doing their own thing with it, and Fully Charged, arguably even more so. Like Ruby Spears' show was like, taking just exactly what, like say the, what's it called? Like the instruction manual kind of story material of like Dr. Wily captured Dr. Light's robot masters and repurposed them to be evil, and Mega Man asked himself to be turned into a fighting robot so he can fight back against them, and Proto Man is his brother. And even then, like, oh, we made Proto Man evil because Mega Man 5 was new and Proto Man was the bad guy in it, but we didn't actually look far enough ahead to realize that he's not actually a villain, it was Dark Man in disguise. Oops, Fully Charged felt much more like somebody took the concept of classic and did their own thing with it. And I found that really, really fascinating. What I remember hearing about when they were doing the pilot, because I know a couple people that auditioned for the pilot, and I knew one person that I think either did like storyboarding or maybe character design for it. And they had like, I think I saw concept art of the character that eventually became Sergeant Knight, Sergeant Breaker Knight. And I recall being told, when a friend of mine was auditioning for Elecman, and they said that Airman was called Fan Man in it, but Elecman was, he had like electrical wires for hair, almost like dreadlocks or something, which I thought was kind of cool. So I was hearing, mumblings about this. The whole thing about how like, oh, the Sergeant Knight character, he seems to kind of be almost like a Dr. Wily equivalent character, and he's not actually Wily himself. That was a little concerning. But when the show was finally coming out and I saw the art style, I was like, okay, all right, this could be interesting, sure. And I ended up actually watching almost every episode of that show. I was sad to find that, much like many other series, it was kind of given like a crappy time slot, and that was sort of the death of it, was they put it on at like 6 a.m. or something on Cartoon Network, because it took I recall it taking a long time to get made, and then like eventually it took a while for it to even get a place where they were going to be uploading it anywhere, airing it anywhere at all, because we were like, yeah, where is this gonna go? Like what this isn't a Cartoon Network original or a Disney or a, whatever. And my understanding is that shows like that where like they're not made by the particular studio for that channel. They're like by an outside company, and that was worked on by the Man of Action guys. So I know it had some, troubled development and a little bit of a troubled life cycle. And they did 26 episodes. I saw most of them. And it became fun to see just like, okay, what are they going to do with this Robot Master? How will they reinterpret this one? Like, oh, the world seems to have like its own lore, like the Hard Wars was this kind of part of the backstory. And like Dr. Light didn't create all of the Robot Masters, but he did create, Mega Man and this character that eventually was Namagem. Originally, I remember hearing, so Namagem was this character that was like the anti-Mega Man, and he was kind of like a cross between Proto Man and Bass a little bit. And then he's revealed to be like the twin of Mega Man, and Namagem is Mega Man backwards, of course. But I remember hearing at one point, I think maybe during that pilot, that his name was Nega Man, and I'm saying it that way on purpose. It's Nega, like negative, like Negaduck and Eggman Nega. I'm trying to be safe with the way I pronounce it, because for the obvious reasons of probably why they changed it in the first place. So there's that, But that aside, it was cool. It was cool to see, and this is actually kind of a bummer, and I kind of blame myself for this. So the show didn't end up going any further from that, and they did end up continuing it in the form of a comic book series, which I was buying, I think, the first like 1 or 2 issues of. And it seemed like they were kind of going in a cool direction, because they had the role equivalent character, Suna, Mega Man's sister. They had her become Zero. And I think Namagem became the new Mega Man, and then Skullman became sort of the new like evil overlord of the robot world, basically. And I would have liked to see. I don't know how much farther that the comic went, but I wanted to see what else they were going to do with it, and I'm glad that they got to continue it for a time. But but it wasn't like blowing me away necessarily. But I could sense that there was love put into it. I liked what they did with all the Robot Masters. I liked that they did like kind of funny things with them, and the interesting little stories that they did with each of them, and seeing. I didn't love Mega Mini. Mega Mini was kind of like, to me, felt like sort of an unnecessary element of just like some, thing for him for Aki Mega Man to have like, internal arguments with. And I was like, all right, whatever. This doesn't really add anything. And he's not really funny to me necessarily. I liked, how cool that version of Dr. Light was. Suna, the sister, made me laugh a lot. She was cute. Caitlin Bairstow, who voiced her, I've gone on to be friends with, and she's very sweet. Maybe as I'm saying that, maybe I really should go, and I don't read nearly as much comics in general as I used to. Maybe I should go pick up the rest of those and see however far they got, and maybe finish up the rest of what that story was going to be doing, and see what happens. But that's all of them. Allegedly, we're supposed to be getting some kind of Mega Man live action movie at some point, and we still haven't. I don't know when or if that's still going on. I forget even like what studio was even doing it. There's been like little bits of news trickling out about it, thanks to Proto Dude with his blog, because he's just always up on everything regarding Mega Man stuff. But I have no idea if it's even still happening at this point, to be honest. And I think it's his name, Adi Shankar, the guy that's one of the head dudes of the Castlevania Netflix series, and now he's doing the Devil May Cry series as well. That's going to be coming out on Netflix. I want to say I think that he expressed interest at some point in doing a Mega Man X animated show in that same kind of style, which, if it's like Castlevania, I mean, that'd be amazing to see that. I would love to check that out. But I don't know. I don't know what the future is for Mega Man animation and just stuff in general. I'm really not sure about like what else they may or may not, because we're kind of at that standstill. You know, we had the collections, we had Mega Man 11, you know, we had the Rockman X Dive or whatever, but that's about all. So I don't know. I've really enjoyed my time with all the Mega Man cartoons. You know, most of them, as you can tell from my review, are not amazing. They're not groundbreaking. NT Warrior is the one that I think holds up the best. I will also say too, the Rockman EXE movie, the Program of Light and Darkness. Love that movie. I rewatched that in Japanese recently and was really enjoying it. And I wish that like somebody like Discotek or somebody would like license rescue that movie and dub it and get the old cast back and do everything. That'd be really cool to see that someday. But yeah, so that's going to wrap this one up. So everybody, thank you for tuning into this one. Thank you again, Iris Blue Moon, for making the suggestion for this. Everybody out there, tell me in the comments, what are your you know, memories of the Mega Man cartoons and anime, if you have seen any of them. Have I, from my Mega Man love, you know, over the years, gotten you interested in watching any of them? You know, did you watch the NT Warrior episodes when they were put up on YouTube a little while ago? Have you seen much of the Ruby Spears show? Did you watch Fully Charged? You know, let me know. I'm curious. And as always, again, if you want to suggest future Kirblog topics, please consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/Kirbifer. Continue to check out the Voice October interviews for this year. We just had one with Tara Sands a little while ago, and I've got one coming up on the following weekend with Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who is awesome. And I don't know if I'm going to get to do anything for Halloween in terms of video content. I wanted to draw the tome characters from the RPG as the Mario RPG characters, but I can't because of my hands. I'm sorry, everybody. But tune in and check out everything. I've got some stuff happening in November as well. I got to get back to work. And although actually I say that I'm going to relax for the rest of the weekend. So I'll catch you all later. Thank you so much. And bye-bye.